Hey guys, Scott here. Just want to give my first impressions on Chucky and Dead by Daylight, and they are definitely good. I don't want to really talk about balance, how strong or weak he is yet. It's just too soon to say. He seems pretty solid so far, I must admit. There's a lot of very unique things that Chucky does. But overall, I want to go over just the overall fun and just how much of a good addition to the game it is. So first up, let's go over the actual perks that he has. They're not super good. He has one perk that I could consider possibly meta, but the rest are just sort of memes, but that are actually pretty funny ones. The first one is Hex 2 can play. Whenever you're stunned or blinded twice, a dull totem becomes a Hex totem as long as that Hex is up. Whenever you are stunned or blinded, the survivor doing that action will also get blinded. So it's like Retribution, they get blinded at the same time. I can think of certain synergies with like Spirit Fury Enduring. Think about it, you get Spirit Fury Enduring, and the pallet breaks, the survivor's blind, you hit them while they're blind. They don't even know where they're speed bursting. They might just speed burst into a wall and they go down. So stuff like that I can already think of. It's got some pretty niche uses. Is it something that you can slap on every build and get a lot of value on? No, not really. But it definitely has some niche uses that are a bit more than just a joke. They're actually pretty significant. But for the most part, not a meta perk or anything like that. But it is funny that you can now actually blind survivors. When I read this first, I thought it meant it applies the blind status effect, but no, it physically blinds their screen as if they're getting flashlight blinded. So it's pretty funny. The next is Friends to the End. This is probably his actual meta perk. Basically, whenever you hook somebody that's not the obsession's aura is revealed and they get exposed for 20 seconds. I can imagine this being really good on killers with map control, killers like Spirit or Wraith, getting there really fast, and then they're exposed to on top of that, and you see their aura for half the exposed duration. That's pretty scary. I don't think it's super good on Chucky himself, because his map control is not that great, but on killers with map control, that's going to be a very high value perk that could actually be meta. So killers like, I don't know, Blight, Wraith, Spirit, any killer that can get around pretty fast, even not Demogorgon, hell yeah, even Demogorgon too. Xenomorph, anyone that's got big map control and big map traversal is going to benefit from that perk a lot. So that is actually his main meta perk. That will see a lot of use on a lot of killers. It's sort of like a reverse make your choice, but it's very good. Batteries Included is another one that's not super amazing, but basically whenever you're within 12 meters of a generator, you move 5% faster, and it lingers for 5%. I can think of combining that with like Rapid Brutality. If you're chasing people around finished gens, then you're going to be going very fast. But typically, you want to be chasing people around unfinished gens. That way, you're pressuring the generator to not finish and also pressuring the survivor that you're chasing. So, again, situationally useful, depending on the map. If you're on the game or something, this perk is insanely strong. If you're on, Red Forest or something like that, it's not going to do too much depending on how the game is going. So it really is hit and miss. I do think if you have like a map offering, you can ensure this perk gives very high value. But other than that, it's not super strong. So those are his perks. Now let's actually talk about his power. It is incredibly unique. It is a blend of so many different things. You sort of have like an Oni dash mechanic. You have Blight hug teching. You've got on-demand stealth from like Skull Merchant. You have an entirely third-person camera, which is just unique. There are a lot of things that make Chucky a very, very unique killer, which is great. The first and most important part about his power, I would say, is the fact that you are in third person. Being in third person is a power in and of itself. Now, Chucky moves at 110%. He's a slower killer, and initially I thought, oh, that's going to suck, but not really. It's not that big of a deal because his actual chase power is quite good too, but just simply being short is a power in and of itself, and being third person while being short. The amount of times I just used hidey-ho mode to go stealth and lose my red light, and I just stood still, the survivor had absolutely no idea where I was, and then they just ran into me and died. So I've noticed what good survivors are doing as soon as they see hidey-ho mode start, because the Terry just drops, they will basically just leave the loop, assuming that the killer is trying to mind game. And I had a couple of people that are very good survivors that did that to pretty good success towards me. But then you have Slice and Dice, which is this very long-range dash. So if they do leave the loop, you can make up that distance almost immediately. Now, the control of this Slice and Dice dash is probably closest to, I would say, Oni's Demon Dash. It feels like a Demon Dash. And in fact, there's a little lunge you can do after the dash as well. So it really does feel like Oni's Demon Dash. However, you can also kind of do like hug tech like you can with Blight. You can look at a wall and you won't collide with the wall, kind of like Oni as well. And you can slide along the wall and hit people at very sharp turns if you glide along the wall properly. So there's definitely a skill component there too. There's a lot of things to learn where you can and cannot use his power. And look, it's got the Scott Jun seal of approval. I like killers that have dash straight line powers. It's no secret that, Wesker, Demogorgon, like even Wraith with his lunge, All the killers that have that type of dash mobility attack, I always really like. And this killer is exactly that. And his dash is just fucking hilarious. Even as Survivor, just seeing him go like across the screen, just cursing at people and just screaming. It's just funny. It's just a funny overall vibe to the game. And his power is actually extremely good at loops. So like I said, there's the little hug tech thing you can do where you can slide around loops and still heal people at very, very sharp angles. And the distance you gain is decent. There are add-ons to increase the distance you gain, which make him even stronger. There are add-ons that reduce the cooldown after you hit somebody in this power as well. So there's a lot you can do to make Slice and Dice very, very powerful, and it's by far the most fun thing about him. But like I said, even if he did not have Slice and Dice, he still has the ability to check spot survivors. A check spot is when a survivor sits at a corner and waits to see if the killer is going to mind game it or not. Usually this is typically only locked into the survivors because they're in third person, so they can sit at the corner and wait. But Chucky can actually check spot survivors now, which is really, really good. It basically makes it so survivors cannot do any fancy stuff. You can't like FOV tech him. You can't vault the window and try to go under him. You can't really do the things you could do against a normal killer against Chucky because he's also in third person. And that in and of itself is like a power. Being able to see in third person and being short makes you don't even have to use Slice and Dice at half the loops in the game. You can still just sort of stand there and almost like it's like spirit phasing. I'm not even sure. It might even be like unfair. I'm not sure yet. It's too early to say, but there are a lot of times where you don't even have to do anything. You just simply being short and being in third person is enough of a power in and of itself. So that is very strong. Now, all of this is counterbalanced by the fact that he's a 110 killer. So it makes this sort of weird dichotomy where you're not quite a stealth killer, because if you're using his power for stealth, by the time you initiate a chase, well, your power is probably going to run out and you're not going to be able to use the dash portion of his power. So now you're just a 110 killer with nothing. It's almost like using Spirit for map control, but not for anti-loop, which is not great. However, if you only use his power for just using it in chase, people are going to hear you coming from, 32 meters away and have plenty of time to get to somewhere safe. So it's like you kind of have to choose half between stealth and half between actually having good anti-loop. And the thing is, his add-ons enable a ton of different builds. He has an iridescent add-on that essentially makes him a pure stealth killer. He has add-ons that make his charge a lot better. He has add-ons that, there are a lot of different things that you can do with this killer, and various builds are possible because of his add-ons. And I think that's really good design. I love when add-ons change the playstyles of killers. So there are a lot of things you can do with Chucky, and that's great. That'll keep people playing him for a lot longer. Overall, though, his anti-loop is very strong on tiles like Shack, Jungle Gyms, even on shorter rock loops. He can actually vault pallets while he's in hidey-ho mode, and he vaults basically as fast as a Survivor fast vault. So if it's a long enough loop, he can just straight up follow you and down you before you get around the loop again. Now, there are even add-ons that enable you to do that better. There's one that makes you run 4% faster after you vault for a few seconds, and that makes it so even short loops you can kind of get around. And even that might seem oppressive. If it's a short loop, it's almost like Old Legion, who can down you after they vault, because you basically vault as fast as a fast vault. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this killer, and I gotta say, most of my impressions are good. Balance-wise, I'm not 100% sure yet. There might be things that are a bit lopsided on one side or the other. I'm really not sure yet. The most important takeaway from this is he was fun. I had a really good time playing with him. I had a really good time playing against him. Even though he was downing me a lot, it was still, I don't know. It didn't have the same level of unsatisfaction as like Knight downing me or something. It still felt entertaining getting downed by this killer. Maybe it's due to the sheer aesthetics and him shit-talking me as he downs me. I don't know. It's just overall a great addition to the game, and I think this chapter is a pretty solid win so far. Now, I'm not sure if someone's going to find out some new tech or something that makes this killer insane or something like that. I've already seen people do the Oni flick, where you can essentially look up and down really quickly to go over the 90 degrees that you're normally able to turn. It's not much more. You get like an extra 20 degrees. Very situationally useful. But there's going to be little things like that that people find out over time that I'm not sure of yet. But overall, first impressions are great. I had a lot of fun. I want to play him again tomorrow because he was just fun. So that's a really good sign. Overall, good stuff. Chucky, great addition to the game so far, and I'm looking forward to playing him more.